Hey guys, welcome back to the Psalms to God YouTube channel. For those who are new, I do a lot of journaling, particularly journaling as it relates to faith. For those of you who are not new, welcome back. This is another one of those tips, tricks, how do I journal type of videos. I wanted to share with you guys some of the different types of pages that I include in my journals. I know sometimes you get bored of doing the same thing over and over again, and sometimes you don't really know where to start with a study. And so I include a couple of different things to help me work through those kind of writer's blocks or study blocks. And so I wanted to go through some of them here. I'm just going to briefly touch on them and show them to you in my current journal. I have been working on separate videos where I go into more detail about each type of page and how I work on them or how I set them up. So please look forward to those, and those that are already out I will link, and I guess as time goes on I'll come back and link them at the top and in the description box below. So without further ado, let's take a look in my journal so that we can see uh, what kind of pages I do. So here is my journal. Let's see if we can get the whole thing to fit on camera. Don't mind that. That's just a nice little cable to set everything up. Fun things. Okay, so this is my journal. Of course, I always have a cover page. So typically I include Ugh. All right. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, guys. Setting up these types of things is a little hazardous. But typically I include what I call a list of lists, and this is basically my table of contents. I include a list of the lists that I plan to include. So some of these are also kind of table of contents for other subject matter. So for instance, I have words to study. So it is a list of words that I plan to study eventually, and it will also have page numbers for what the words that I actually study. You'll see as I get there. But up front, I just kind of know there are certain lists that I'm going to keep, and so I go ahead and lay them out here. And any list that I come up with while I am journaling, I just add them to this first page. So I can always come to this first page to know where to find the things that I have been working on. So the first couple of pages are basically these initial lists that I always create. As I mentioned, I have a words to study page. And so here, basically, I list words that I want to study throughout my studies. If I'm reading a passage or something and a word pops into my head, I might write it here. Or as I'm doing the word study, I'll come back and add it. And then I will add the page numbers. And you will see on like page 18, I have a word study on the word blessing. And word studies is one of the types of pages I like to do. So the first couple of pages here are basically just these kind of list type of pages where I'm listing things that I would like to study or things that I have studied and keeping track of it. Like here are a bunch of places that I want to study, and these kind of correlate to the types of pages that I will eventually be adding into the journal. Now, before we keep flipping through, I do want to make note of this. So sometimes I just like a particular verse. One of my friends and I were talking, we were studying, and we started talking about this particular verse, and I really liked it. So I just added it on the page. Sometimes I do things that are a little bit more artistic, sometimes they're a little less artistic. And so if I want to highlight a particular verse, I will make it large and play with some of the fonts and things like that. Just a verse that I want to meditate on for the day or, for the week or something like that. So I have, basically, I guess I would call this a quote page where I keep track of different verses. And like I said, I'm still keeping some of these. And of course, these are, hints to the types of pages that I include. Here is another one of those quote pages where I have John 16:33. And I just do those lists. So This is one of the first, I guess, like completed lists. If you follow my podcast, you know that I want to do some episodes on literary devices in the Bible. I found a ton of literary devices. There are 131 of them on this list, in case you are wondering. And I will be picking from this list to go over certain of these topics in my podcast. And as I do them, I will mark the page numbers, and there will be corresponding pages for each one. So that's something that's upcoming and should be fun. I'm moving this off to the side because one of the pages over here is a prayer page, and I don't really want all of those prayers to just be shown. We'll be skipping that. But one of these first page that I did in this journal was a Bible study. This was a virtual Bible study I did at my aunt and uncle with my aunt and uncle's church, and so it was on Romans 1, the first 7 verses. So I basically will do things like this when I'm doing a Bible study with a different group. I keep the notes. This one I actually have the entire passage written here because it was fairly short and easy to fit all of it on this page without it getting too crazy. So Bible study pages is the first type of page that I do. This can be something that you do with a group, or it can be personal Bible studies. Both are advantageous, and those are probably the ones that I do the most. The second is word studies. We touched on these briefly, and you've probably seen me create some of these on the channel. I do have a few up where I'm not really talking, I'm just doodling through them. I am working on a video to actually go through and talk about how I do these and why I do them. But studying particular words and how they relate to the word is very edifying. I love doing these. So here I have a dual page, one with blessings and one with curse, to know the difference between the blessings of God and the curses. And I thought it was interesting that blessings occur 487 times in the Bible, particularly in the NASB translation, and curses only occur 173 times. So that's something to be thankful for. So then this is actually a sermon that I listened to. And so here I just kind of did some notes from here. I followed through with what the pastor was saying, and then some of these are quotes so this is like a quote that the pastor said, and this is a quote, and then the green cursive is actually Bible verses that I went back and added in. And so this is just kind of going through this, and actually I have this initial thoughts section here where in the beginning, while I didn't really have any notes to write, I kind of had some initial thoughts about where it was going. And I thought it would be interesting to go ahead and write them out and see if my initial thoughts of where the pastor was going matched with what he actually went with. And there was some overlap, but he also went in some different directions than I expected, which was always a good thing, always a fun thing to see. So that is a sermon note page. And then I have, if I can flip the page, hold on, okay. So this is a character study. I only recently started doing this, so this is my first journal to actually have character studies in it, but I found it to be very, very helpful and very interesting. So this one in particular is on Joseph. I do have this up on the blog. I will also link that below. And you'll see kind of how I did that. They can be more in-depth or less in-depth. Of course, you know that most people in the Bible, some people you get chapters and chapters and maybe even multiple books about them, and some people it's very short. So Joseph actually has a lot of information on him. Side note, this is Joseph, the son of Jacob, not Joseph, the father of, I'm saying the father of Jesus, the adoptive father of Jesus, or the wife of the husband of Mary. This is the other Joseph from Genesis. And so this is my character study on him. And this is printed. No, guys, I did not draw this. I'm not not that creative. But I put this map here because I wanted to be able to see where his descendants settled within Egypt. I can't talk today, guys. Within Israel. Within Israel. Yeah. So that was that. And then, as if you couldn't have told from the previous page where I had the map, I do like the whole history and the whole like genealogy and where each tribe settled in. So I also like to look at places that are mentioned in the Bible and the tribes that settle there and the history of them and how they come into modern history. And so this is one of those pages. I showed you the list in the front where it said places. So this is actually on Ham's son Put or Foot, or I think it's spelled Put. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. But he descended in northern Africa where modern Libya is. And so I have a brief lineage here. It's, I skipped a lot of people. I didn't go through, the entire lineage because it would have taken up the whole page. But I just hit the highlights, Adam, Seth, Noah, Ham, right? Like, we know there are people in between there. But it gets down to Put or Foot, and he is, the brother of Canaan, Cush, and Mizraim. And I did a little brief word study here on his name and what it meant. And then here I have some of the biblical references, and then I go through and look at some of the history of modern Libya and how it has, changed over time, and, what was said in like prophecy about it and things like that. So that's always interesting, or at least I find it interesting. I also have these things called the questions page, and I actually just so happen to be able to fit 2 in here on one page, so that I didn't waste space. I went to a sermon once where the pastor talked about asking questions as you read the verses, and so that's what I did. He did an exercise, and the whole group of us came up with, I think, like 100 and something questions for one passage. I did not come up with that many questions here, but the whole idea is to help you figure out what you already know and what you don't know and what you should know about a particular verse. This one I actually picked kind of at random. It was just like the verse of the day on, Bible Gateway or something. And I was like, okay, I like this. I'm going to try to get more in depth, and I'm going to ask some questions. This little definition thing is from one of the questions I asked about what does anxiety actually mean. Sometimes I answer these, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I answer them mentally, and sometimes I leave them for going back to them later. But I think this is also a cool way to start a Bible study or to get more in depth into a verse. And sometimes I ask questions that are obvious because sometimes the obvious answer is not actually the answer. Now, the section below it is also kind of similar, but it's done slightly different. This is a question that popped into my head as I was watching a documentary. I actually have a video talking about that here on the channel. It is my reaction to stolen daughters kidnapped by Boko Haram. And I just felt like, why are people so evil? And so I kind of wrote this little blurb about how I was feeling and why I was asking this question. And then I found this verse about the heart being deceitful and wicked. And I did see some other verses. I just didn't get a chance to write them out down here, but I do plan to write them out. This is actually the last page, but I plan to write out some of the other verses, or not out like this, but write the reference to them. That was kind of talking about my question here, or the answer to my question. So I do that type of page as well. So these are the different types of pages that I include in my journal. Just to recap, I will use the initial pages up here because I think it'll help to see the words written out. But I do word studies. I do studies on people. I do studies on places. And of course, Bible quote pages. I write in sermons, and then I have themes and topics, which are basically Bible studies that I am doing either by theme or by a specific topic. And then I have Bible studies that are more like group led. I have questions. And, I have this section for poetry, which I like to write poetry. I didn't mention that because I don't have an example in here. But I do like to write poetry on my own. And so sometimes I will include poetry in my journals. So that is all I have for you guys today. If you have types of pages in your journals that you include that you think would be helpful, please leave a comment down below and let me know what you do. If you liked this and you want to see more videos like this, let me know that too. Tell me which is your favorite type of page to do, and share this with your friends if they're also into journaling. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.